welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another edition, another episode of the PondCast, episode number 28. I'm, of course, host Live VIP. With me, I'm not joined, actually, with El Enfermo con un pájaro poderoso, papi, Yaku of the Zaku. This week, I am, unfortunately, all by myself. I mean, I say that, shout out to, of course, Kuro handling the production. Without Kuro, this show would not be possible, and is working behind the scenes to make sure that everything is not catching fire. Unfortunately, this week, I do apologize for the stream going live a little bit later. Do apologize for it being a little bit delayed. But this week we do not have Yakuzaku. Wishing the best of luck as he is recovering. Is currently under the weather. He will tell you that he's not sick, but he's sick. He's hey, este Yaku. So best of luck to Yaku on his road to recovery, and hopefully he is able to be recovered in time for the upcoming weeks and the upcoming end of year celebration as well. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of content here in This Week in StarCraft. I'll do my best to bring it to you here by myself. It is going to be a bit of a shorter broadcast, I'm sure, as we're going to have less discussion amongst ourselves. I guess I can try to talk with myself when it comes to going through some of these things, but we'll be going over some of this once again when Yaku returns in the future next year's PondCast. So here we go. As a reminder as well, this is the final PondCast of the year. Oh boy, there's a lot to get into. And here we go. First up, we have the Kespa Esports Hall of Fame. Interesting here. We haven't really had too many updates from this. I want to say that Mario did join the Hall of Fame quite some time ago, but it looks like we have some SC2 players joining the Hall of Fame as well. I say SC2 players, specifically both Dark and Solar. Also, when it comes to Dark's induction into the Hall of Fame, we did have a small interview. It was in Korean. Shout out to Wax Angel for providing some brief summarization of what was said during the interview. And our kind of suspicions were somewhat confirmed here. If you were here for the past week, in the previous podcast, and even during some of our previous casts as well, you would know that we were theorizing. We were theorizing and kind of assuming here and making some assumptions that Dark was going to the military soon. The reason for this is because Dark did not compete and did not partake in the Masters Coliseum qualifiers, and he did not accept the invite into Masters Coliseum either. We assumed because it's a 2-month event and because it ends next month, if he didn't partake, then most likely it's because he's not available, and that could be related to military service. Likewise, Dark also recently left last week that we did announce, did leave Talon Esports, also part of that looking to be because of military service as well. And here he also does say, doesn't give a direct date, doesn't confirm when he's going, but he is starting military service soon, TM. So again, we had assumed that was the case because of, again, some certain factors over the past couple of weeks that were kind of leaning in that direction, and now we somewhat have confirmation of that, just assuming that he is going to be going next month in January, which is definitely a little bit sad. I mean, it is really cool that while we still have him, Dark, he is inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's an amazing player. He's a very historic player in StarCraft 2, but at the same time, the scene is going to be, we're going to be missing a very dark-sized hole in Korean and just in StarCraft in general here. Dark, he is an amazing player. He is one of the best Zerg players in the world. He is the best Zerg player in South Korea. So for him to leave us is going to be definitely going to be felt. It's definitely going to be felt here. Among us, and the other Zerg players have to step up. I mean, hey, as we lose one, we gain another, right? Rogue has been improving over time. Rogue has been looking very strong, and he might be looking to fill the shoes of Dark. The thing with Rogue, though, is that Rogue is not as active. He is not as active as Dark, I will say that. Dark, he would play in every single weekly tournament, every single event that he could compete in, he would be there for it. I do remember there were even times where we had to like pause games or just have some downtime just so Dark could make sure that he could take care of his daughter. As a reminder, he is a dad now, he is a papi, and would often have to look after his daughter, for example, and he's still kind of like compromise and make some way to compete whenever he could. So yeah, big shout out to Dark, of course, and yeah, we'll see when he does end up going to the military. To be fair, this isn't the first time that we've heard that Dark is going to the military. He said that before and alluded to it being on the horizon before, and then he just doesn't go. So So, but I think this time it is going to be like a more final thing, and I think this time he is going to be going. So, best of luck to Dark in his endeavors, and I hope that the Korean Zerg player is able to step it up in the absence of Dark. Likewise, it isn't just Dark that's been joined or that has joined the Kespa Hall of Fame, it is also Solar as well. Solar had a very different kind of like acceptance speech. Shout out to Peridosa. Or Peridista, for giving a bit of a translation. Solar, he did, in a way, kind of have a speech that very much so is in line with his ID, sunlight and the summer shine, if you will, and was discussing about how, right now there's a lot of uncertainty in SE2. That is true. That is still very true. Of course, I think it was last week or the week before that, we were talking about EWC, the Esports World Cup, and how it does make a lot of sense that we do have a bit of a delay when it comes to any big announcements. There's a lot that has to be finalized when it comes to agreements that are being made and conditions, and what exactly is the esports landscape going to be looking like, especially under the guise or under the control of the Esports World Cup. There's kind of a lot going on there. So again, we were very understanding of why it's taking so long for an announcement, but we assume that there is going to be an announcement. And Sola just asking for support from the fans out there, for the viewers out there, and then hopefully, what I will say is that the StarCraft community is very passionate, very passionate. That's shown in so many different ways, especially, for example, not just the response to EWC on Twitter, for example, vying and championing for StarCraft, but also the online weeklies that rose up with the kind of with the downturn of the EPT off season and with weeklies going down, other weeklies rising up. There's been a lot going on, and I do feel quite optimistic when it comes to the future of StarCraft. And Solar just expressing some of his concerns here in that accepted speech. So big shout out to Solar, as he is also a part of the Esports World Cup. Of the Kespa Hall of Fame. Is also going to be a part of that. That also leads us into, again, some more old school players here, into an interview that we had with Ryung. I say we had, that Zombie Grub had with Ryung. Very quickly, briefly touching that as well. May as well just go into the interview itself. We have had quite a lot of Korean interviews already here. Shout out to Zombie Grub and her GLHF project. Again, Zombie Grub, for those who are unaware, did crowdfund a big Kickstarter for this endeavor to travel to Korea to interview a bunch of players, to hire editors, and to bring this all together. For those that are unaware, these are the raw interviews. This is not the official kind of documentary project. Right now, Zomagub is releasing all the interviews by themselves, like kind of like the raw interviews in a way, and that's all going to be compiled later into that documentary series, where it's going to be a little bit more structured, where of course we're going to be bringing together all the perspectives, and a more narrative is going to be told, I'm sure. So this is still the early days of the project itself. It is really cool to see that, of course, all the interviews were conducted and they are being released week after week after week. We've had interviews with Crank, interviews with DRG, interviews with Gur, which was really cool to see, Wolf as well, and many others. So every week we have an interview to talk about. I know that Yaku has a lot to say about this interview as well. I mean, Ryung is very near and dear to our hearts. Ryung, of course, he's the ex-Axiom player. We have very close ties to Axiom. One of our tournaments is even named after Ryung as well. So we got a lot of love for Ryung, and the interview itself was quite nice. Shout out to Maddox. Maddox was the translator for, I believe, most, if not all, of the Korean interviews that Zombie did conduct. What I will say though, and Yaku and I, we had a very brief conversation before we went live here, just because he did want to make sure that his own thoughts were expressed, and I do wholeheartedly agree with those thoughts. And that is that this is a very short interview. It is, I believe, the shortest interview of all the GLHF interviews. It's like 20, it's not even half an hour, it's like 25 minutes. It's a very short interview. And because that it feels very surface level, there were some really nice questions, and we got to get a little bit of insight from Ryung, but it wasn't very in-depth, and it did feel like it left a lot on the table here, especially when it comes to his time being spent in some of these teams and some of these team houses, in some of these environments as well, and his kind of thoughts and his perspective from certain eras of StarCraft. We did hear a lot more of that from DRG, for example, but the questions weren't really asked here to Ryung, which was kind of weird. He was asked about, like the Imba moment at GSL, and he was asked about like his introduction into pro gaming and into Brood War, then following into SC2. I think that early section is really good. But post that, Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, there was very little that was asked of him, which was really weird. Specifically, we were discussing, and I brought up the fact that, because I remember this, because this is when I was getting into StarCraft, Ryung, he was the MVP of, I want to say, season 1 of 2013's GSTL. I remember they spoke with Wolf. They had a more in-depth conversation with Wolf regarding GSTL and what it meant to the players and what it was. And I think that was very, 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 very well done. Likewise, they also asked Crank about it because Axiom were the final champions of GSTL, and Ryung was the MVP. Ryung, he was the ace player of Axiom for a long time in GSTL, and I think it would have been really cool to have heard from his perspective. I know at the time he had a rivalry with Innovation as well. For those who do not know, Axiom, in the first season of GSTL, they were on their own. It was just Axiom. I say that. It was Axiom Acer, but Acer was a bit of a smaller team. MMA was, of course, involved alongside Scarlet. It wasn't until the second season that Innovation got involved, the second season of GSTL. And in the first season, Ryung was the MVP, not just of the team, but of the league. He was crowned the MVP award, and his team actually did quite well in that first season. They made it all the way to the playoffs. In the second season, he was kind of like, he had a rivalry with Innovation, and they had like this back and forth. Innovation ended up winning the MVP award that season, and I know that there was not necessarily hostilities, but there was definitely like banter between Ryung and Innovation in that time as well. And it would have been really nice to have heard from that. Likewise, really nice to have heard kind of his rise to the top as well in that era, because that was like peak Ryung as well. Yeah, I feel like there was a lot left on the table, and the interview did feel surprisingly brief. Which is definitely a bit of a shame. I think part of it might also be specifically the two shortest interviews that we've had so far from the GLHF series are Ryung and DRG. And part of that may just be language barrier in a sense. What I mean by that is typically Zombie has been conducting these interviews herself. As of course they've been in English, and I'm sure it helps that she's maybe able to elaborate and maybe ask follow-up questions that weren't necessarily written down. So like they can go more in depth and have a more back and forth conversation. Here, because they're being translated, I'm sure Zombie wrote down a bunch of questions for Maddox to ask, but there's not necessarily like any kind of further like delving into a question or asking some more in-depth answers. Zombie did that with Crank, but his interview was in English, so so it's a little bit different. So I think that might be part of the reason why specifically both Ryung and DRG's interviews are much shorter, just because they're being asked specific questions, and there isn't really much further than that. Which by no means is any fault to Maddox. Maddox is there to translate, but like it is missing that kind of like that touch from Zombie, which is what was a little bit more interesting about some of the other interviews, is that they got to have more of a discussion and more of a back and forth. So that might be a reason as to why. That would make sense, at least in my mind, a reason as to why specifically these two Korean interviews are a little bit shorter. That does make me a little bit concerned when it comes to the future Korean interviews that are going to be held. But I hope that we're able to still get some nice like content and nice information out of them. And I still obviously do wish the best of luck when it comes to the future interviews. But that is just something that I've noticed so far when it comes to both Ryung and DRGs. And we'll see if that trend continues with future interviews as well. We'll see. I hope it's not the case. Again, I'm a big fan of these players, and I would love to hear more from them. Fingers crossed. Another little bit of a fun fact as well towards the end, or when it comes to a question that was asked here, which does coincide with what we know, is Ryung. He was asked about Idra. He was asked about because Idra did actually stay with Slayers for a time. And again, this goes back to the fact that I do think that they had a lot of questions regarding like the Wings of Liberty era of StarCraft. It was just post that where they didn't really get too much in depth, but he spoke about his experience with Idra, and he was talking about like, he had heard that like maybe Idra was like a little bit of a showman on the foreign scene, but Idra was like really respectful when he was with them, even more so than some of the other Koreans. And this does go in line with what we know about Idra. For those who don't know, Idra, like surface level, has a reputation of being like a little bit BM, especially amongst the international scene. But if you remember at the time, Idra specifically had a lot of respect for Korean players. Like he would often, the reason why there would often be a lot of BM, or he would often talk up and talk out to some of these other foreigner players, is because uh, realistically he had a little bit less respect for them, did have a little bit less respect for them. But when it came to the Koreans, that's where he, especially after staying in Korea, like he did really hold them in high regard. And yeah, that's kind of like confirmed here as Ryung is telling us stories about how, like, Ija would often, like take them out to eat and pay for their food, and would often like be quite respectful and give them advice and all this stuff, and was very, very nice to them. And yeah, that just goes in line with what we already know about Ija. So yeah, it was just really really fun to hear that perspective, just because even though we've heard of this, we don't really get to hear a lot from the Koreans that were staying with him to like actually get their side of things. So was really nice to hear. So yeah, just like a little fun fact. But regardless, with that, that is the Ryung interview. I do recommend tuning in. Again, even though it is a very short interview, it is definitely a lot of fun, especially if you are an old school fan of StarCraft, and if you're a fan of Ryung. Do recommend it. Even if you're not, even if you're just curious and maybe you're a newer fan of StarCraft and you're a little bit less aware of some of the of like Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm era of StarCraft, and maybe you see these players compete in modern StarCraft, but you don't really know their story or how they started or their background. Do recommend it. It's pretty good. Is pretty good. A lot of love to Ryung. As that concludes some of our news of the week, and now we can go into some of our tournaments instead. Oh boy, this week we had a Sea Duckling Open. If you're curious, what is the Sea Duckling Open? Well, it is a tournament that we host here on the CranKy Ducklings. We did host it not too long ago. It was on Friday, but we did actually have a replay cast afterwards, as we were unavailable to cover it live at the time. But this is a tournament series that we have been running for many, many years. This is how we began as the CranKy Ducklings, with Sea Duckling Open back in 2017. It's been many, many years. It's been over 7 years of StarCraft, over 7 years of Sea Duckling Open. The first one was back in October of 2017, so over 7 years. Crazy, crazy. And yeah, it was really cool to see some new competitors and some new champions as well. We had Move and Deception competing for the first time here in Sea Duckling Open, and Deception, and coming into it, I mean, things are looking quite strong for Move. He went undefeated all the way to the grand finals. He 2-0'd Dark Lorlax, he 2-0'd Battle Pants, he 2-0'd Deception as well. Like Move, like when I was seeing this, when I was admitting, I was like, damn, like he's he's just gonna clean sweep everything. But Deception, he had a really nice run when it comes to the format. Because the signups were a little bit lower this week, there was double elimination. Double elimination, that means there was a second chance, there was a lower bracket, and Deception, he bounced back, he fought back, went all the way to the ace match in the grand finals, and he won it in the end. So a very, very very fun and very cinematic kind of finale to the tournament, where Move was kind of the heavy favorite, and then Deception came in as the underdog and won it all in the end. So congratulations to Deception. Again, they're both newer players to our tournament circuit. We had more of our regulars. We had Zertanus, Werehog, Cos Phoenix, Fizz Serpent. We had some newcomers as well. And yeah, it was really cool to have everyone getting involved here. I should also emphasize Sea Duckling Open. This is an amateur event. This was for a long time Bronze to Diamond. Now this has been changed to Bronze to 4.2k MMR. So it is for some lower tier players. Basically, the cap is around Diamond 1, low Masters 3 is kind of the cap for this tournament. So yeah, it's really cool to see some newer faces here in our tournament series, despite how long it's been running. And yeah, it's just a way to incentivize players to compete, to improve, and to rank up every time. So GG, well played to Deception. Fun fact, Deception, he isn't necessarily a new player. Fun fact, Deception, he actually used to compete, because I was checking out his history when it came to his account, and I was asking him some questions as well. And Deception, he was an active player back in Heart of the Swarm. Back in Heart of the Swarm, he was very active, and he didn't ladder at all in Legacy of the Void. He did not ladder at all, didn't touch the game. Initially, I thought it was a new account, but I was like, oh no, actually, this account was active back in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, not at all in Legacy of the Void. And this was his first time playing and competing and laddering as well this season, since what, 2015? So it's been almost 10 years of being away from the game. And yeah, did very well for himself. GG well played. Hope we see more of Deception, and I hope he does continue to compete and improve over time. Otherwise, with that, that is the end of this month's Sea Duckling Open. As a reminder, this is a monthly tournament. Every single month we do host this, and the next event is going to be in January. So do check that out. As we head on over here to Nation League. Nation League has been a fun kind of Nation Wars-esque tournament, but for more amateur players, there is more of an MMR look around this tournament. So once again, is for amateur players. And I believe the semifinals were held this week. The semifinals were held. We were predicting which teams would advance on and which teams would make it into the grand finals. I remember at the time, my favorite team was Brazil, and Yaku's favorite team was Italy. So they were going back to back. They were duking it out in the semifinals. In the end, Italy did take it. We did have a back and forth, is what I will say. But in the end, Italy gets the 4-2 over Brazil. Italy advances on to the grand finals. Brazil down to the third place match. Likewise, in the upper semifinals, we had a match between Peru and Hungary, and Peru did take the win here. So again, a little Latin American representation. Do love to see it. Peru does advance on to the grand finals over Hungary. It was a much closer series though. Went all the way to the ace match. Barely went the way of Peru. And next week, I believe, is going to be the finals. I say next week, 3 days. 3 days from now is going to be the finals. We will soon crown our Nation League number 5 champions. We'll see which nation it's going to be, and we'll give you guys some updates on the next podcast. So GG well played. Best of luck to Peru, Italy, Hungary, and Brazil. Again, they're also playing for money here. It is top 3. Top 3 do get paid out. You don't want to be landing in that 4th place. So best of luck to that 3rd place match as well, as there's still a lot on the line. Best of luck. Heading on over, not necessarily an amateur event, but something a little bit more unorthodox. Not the first, but we have had a lot of 2v2 events recently. This is unique, though. This isn't just a 2v2 tournament. This is a 2v2 SC Evo tournament, which we don't often get to see. I know that Hyper One, he was, planning or maybe theorizing that maybe it would be nice to start his own 2v2, like kind of one-off end-of-year event for StarCraft Evolution. Shout out to Bratok for making this happen. Bratok, of course, he was once a competitor and still competes every now and then, but recently has taken the role of more of a tournament organizer and caster. He's been making a lot of content on his own channel, so big shout out to Bratok. He's even casted some of our events as well in his own native language, and he did host this tournament. I didn't know that Bratok was too into StarCraft Evolution, so that is a pleasant surprise if you're a fan of the channel. Dzień dobry. Just catching up with the chat. But if you're a fan of the channel, then you would know that we have been casting quite a lot of StarCraft Evolution as of late, especially during the era of the StarCraft Evolution Championship as well. So really cool to see that there was a 2v2 event. Getting into it here, it was a pretty large bracket, double elimination, a lot of players that we're quite used to when it comes to StarCraft 2. I see Shameless, I see Replicant, Young Yakov, Zardiant, GG Machine, Gref, Art as well. We had some Polish representation in the tournament. You do love to see it. And yeah, we had a really interesting run here. Even though some of these players are more known in SC2, again, this is a different format. This is StarCraft Evolution, and I'll be honest, a lot of these players do not actually typically play in StarCraft Evolution, so I don't know how much practice was really put into it. Coming into this, though, we had the duo between Young Yakov and Wannabe Björn winning it all. They had a really strong performance here. The way that this works when it comes to StarCraft Evolution is that they do alternate. They alternate back and forth. That have one game playing StarCraft 2, the StarCraft 2 races, and the other game that switch over to Brutal races, so back and forth, referring to each team. And yeah, Young Yakov, I would say Young Yakov is the strongest player in the CIS region currently. He is the strongest player. I would pin Young Yakov over Wayne. I have to, especially after the previous Firegrow Cup. And Wayne has been less active. He has been less active recently. I'm concerned what that means, but maybe just taking a break especially at the end of the year. But Yakov, he has risen up, and really cool to see him joining up with Wannabe Byan. Wannabe Byan is a player that we have casted before. Again, more of an up-and-coming talent. I believe he is GM as well. Not necessarily the strongest of players, but he is still a very active player himself, and really interesting kind of like a duo here in them joining forces. That's always a lot of fun when it comes to seeing like which players are friends outside of the game and how these duos get formed. So we had Shameless and UD Soldier, kind of like the Protoss duo. We had Zardiant and GG Machine. Those are more like younger amateur up-and-coming players. I remember Zardiant is a mech-heavy player, plays a lot of mech, from what I remember. I think I casted him last year, like in the Christmas Cup or in the New Year's Cup. I do recall covering some Zardiant matches. GG Machine, of course, a little bit more of a known player, I would say, is a little bit more active. We have Gref and Defmars, the Cannon Rushers themselves. Art, he was joining forces with Taruviel as well, so a duo that I wasn't quite expecting, and they had their own wins under their belts as well. Really cool to see. And we had some more amateur players, even some players that don't even have flags associated with them. It might be for one reason or another, potentially because we don't know where they're from. I don't sometimes some incomplete information on the bracket here on the Wikipedia, but shout out to Quokka. I appreciate the name, Quokka, alongside his teammate. They actually brought down Shameless and UD Soldier. That's a surprising result. Like Shameless and UD Soldier, I rate them very highly when it comes to StarCraft 2, so for them to fall early on is a surprising result. But regardless, in the end, Young Yakov and Wannabe Byan, they did have a very dominant performance. They were forced into the ace match against Replicant and Tiger, and that was a sign of things to come. As Replicant and Tiger, they were able to blaze through the lower brackets and have that rematch as well, but was a 3-0 in the end. So congratulations to Young Yakov and Wannabe Byan. Is this a sign that maybe Young Yakov is willing to play a little bit more StarCraft Evolution? Maybe it was just a one-off thing. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But really cool to see this 2v2 event come into play. And shout out, of course, to Bratok for making this happen, and for hosting this event, and for casting the event as well. So congratulations to Young Yakov and Wannabe Byan. Shout out to Bratok. This leads us into our next 2v2 events, as we had a plethora of 2v2 events this month. This week specifically, a lot of 2v2 events. Up next is the Wardy TV 2v2 and 3v3 Cup Series. Wardy has been hosting this as a monthly tournament for the past 3 months, and there is another monthly poised for next month as well, I believe. Again, Wardy, he was testing out these team game tournament series, and he found that there was a lot of viewer interest. So because the viewers were there, he did start to host this more regularly. Again, just as a monthly, not as serious. But yeah, with this was on SE2, not StarCraft Evolution, and we did have our teams facing off here. Once again, really interesting duos. We had Arrowfire and Baby Marine. Alpha X boys joining forces. We have Byan and Shin. That's an interesting duo. Typically in these 2v2 events, I don't know if you've noticed, but Byan, he's usually teaming up with Maru. We've seen a lot of Byan and Maru together, but something has happened. I mean, Byan and Maru, they haven't been too successful, that I will say, in these 2v2 events. We've seen them go down time and time again. So Byan, he joins forces with Shin. Shin, who I would say is his rival currently. Like, we talk about this all the time, but during the off-season of EPT, Byan and Shin, they have been facing off so often in these online tournaments. And here they join forces. They do team up. We have GG Machine and Shameless. I would say a bit of a stronger duo than what we saw in StarCraft Evolution. Milky Cow and Wayne. Wannabe Byan and Young Yakov. Once again, Wannabe Byan and Young Yakov. It could be a friendship there between the two of them, as they join forces more than once now. Art and Tiger, Def Mars and Gref, Honmono and 3-Point, the Hyper Boys. Makes sense. Yep, the Hyper duo, if you will. Moja and Optimist, Azura and Mute. That is a weird one. I'm not gonna lie. Azura and Mute joining forces. Italy and Peru. I would not have expected that duo to be formed. Very interesting. We had Dolan and Hardwell, Boanan and Eba. I don't think that's the last time we've seen Eba join up with Boanan. I think we've seen that before. But Eba, I could be mistaken, but I feel like every now and then he has a different partner. Here he's with Boanan. I think we've seen Eba alongside, obviously, Jumi, famously, was alongside Jumi. But Eba, he had joined forces with Young Yakov not too long ago as well in one of these other tournaments. So, yeah, Eba, a little bit fickle here, has been teaming up with a lot of very different players time and time again. It was Iba and Kokot. There we go, Iba and Kokot.
I wanted to mention. So you said Dolan and Hardwell. If you remember, Hardwell is Zen, I believe. So maybe
Yes.
maybe they met at Chisadelphia.
Yeah. If you recall, Zen is a 2v2 specialist in the Americas region, so it makes sense for Dolan to meet up and team up with Zen, aka Hardwell. So really cool to see that duo. Sunset, UD Soldier, Vindictive, and Backpack. I like that. Backpack was like, carry me on your back, Papi, carry me. And he did his best. Shout out to Miguelito. Did his best to carry Backpack. Did his best. Laser and Lambo, a good friend, like a Zerg duo, I should say. Lemon and Nanami Chiaki, and Trigger and Uwu Thermal. Coming into the tournament itself, when it comes to some of these results here, we had a big result coming in from Trigger and Thermal. They were able to take down Bjorn and Shin 2-0 and take down Lambo and a Laser 2-1 as well. I do think that this makes sense. Again, Thermal, he is one of those players, one of those content creators that plays 2v2 more than, I don't want to say more than not, but more often than some of these other players. He does dive into like team games more often for content purposes or otherwise, does enjoy them, and I feel like he's a really strong teammate to have in a team in a tournament like this. So likewise, Trigger as well does often play a lot of arcade games, a lot of 2v2 as well. So yeah, as a duo, they played very well, and potentially Euthermal played random. It's saying here that he played random. It's possible that he race picked Terran. It's hard to say. We didn't watch the matches ourselves, so if you tuned in yourself, we would love to know if Euthermal did indeed play random. Regardless, Trigger and Euthermal, they win the entire tournament. They take down Lambo and the Laser. I'm surprised that Lambo and the Laser performed as well as they did. Zerg are usually considered very weak in 2v2 and in team games in general. They don't really scale too well into longer games. They can do well aggressively, but as the game progresses longer and longer, they do struggle over time. So impressive that they made it to the finals. But did go down to Trigger and Euthermal. Heading on over, though, we have our next 2v2 tournament by, I believe, sponsored by Streamer Zone, if I remember correctly. Was it Streamer Zone or no, sorry, it's Orsa TV. That's it. Orsa TV. They have partnered once again with Steadfast, and they have brought together Steadfast Comrade in Arms. I remember that this is meant to be pronounced Sia, not CIA. I remember there was like a tweet posted by Orsa TV clarifying that. So Sia, if you will, is another 2v2 tournament that was held. I don't know if this is going to be a regular series, so we'll find out. For now, one-off event. We'll see if it becomes something more regular. And we had the return of a plethora of these duos. And it looks like some of our players here learned from the mistakes. We had a Laser and Lambo teaming up once again, for example. This time Lambo played Protoss. And that's what I assumed would happen. As I mentioned, like, Zerg in general is quite weak in 2v2, and double Zerg feels even worse. So Lambo did off-race this time as Protoss to try to make the duo a little bit stronger. We had Max Pax teaming up with Milky Cow. That was a duo that I was not quite expecting. Once again, we have Azura and Mute. Geralt and Spirit joined forces. Yo, the Polish duo. Okay, we have the best Terran and one of the best Protoss players in Poland teaming up. We had a French team in Arcfire and Psionic. We had Clem and Trigger this time. Interesting. So Clem teaming up with Trigger. Again, they were housemates. For those that are unaware, we bring this up whenever we can. But Trigger and Clem, they're good friends. They did live together in Korea in the lead up to EWC. So clearly, you know, bonds were formed, and they have teamed up once again for another 2v2 event. This time, interesting to see that Trigger and Euthermal, they split up. they were working together for the first 2v2 event, and was there drama behind the scenes? Was Trigger not happy? Was Euthermal not happy with his teammates' performance? There was a split here, and they both found other players to play with instead. Trigger with Clem, Euthermal with Goblin. The drama is real. Once again, we had Wannabe Bjorn and Young Yakov. Once again, GG Machine and Shameless. And once again, Death Mars and Gref. A lot of these duos are the same as what we saw previously. Not all of them, though. And coming into this tournament, Trigger and Clem, they performed quite well. They took down Young Yakov and Bjorn. Oh, sorry, Young Yakov and Wannabe Bjorn. They took down Max Pax and Milky Cow, and they went up against Lambo and a Laser in the grand finals. Once again, always a bridesmaid, never the bride. Lambo and a Laser coming second place in two 2v2 events in a row. But they did get their revenge somewhat against Euthermal. Euthermal and Goblin, they were somewhat successful. They made it to the semifinals, but they got knocked out in the semifinals. And instead, we had Trigger becoming another champion, this time with his new teammate in Clem. Oh boy. Oh boy. So Trigger and Clem, they come out on top. Very well done. It was a best of 5 finals, and Trigger and Clem do take it in the end. Shout out to Lambo and Laser for making it to second place, and shout out to all the other competitors as well. All the other competitors. There was a lot of competition here in this 2v2 event. And again, really cool to see that for whatever reason, 2v2 events are on the rise, at least in popularity. Really cool to see. I mean, 2v2 is a little bit reinvigorated because the 2v2 map pool was recently updated. It was recently updated. So new maps, it's all exciting stuff, and clearly there is interest, at least viewer-wise. When it comes to 2v2, it is not the most balanced of matchups. I think historically for a very long time, one Protoss and one Terran player as a duo are like the best team, the best races to have in 2v2. The Protoss goes into Skytoss, the Terran goes into Mech. That's usually how they work together. They work in tandem, then they can snowball out of control in a macro game. But yeah, it's really cool to see that regardless, we were having some more 2v2 events. They're still a little bit sporadic. The monthlies more than anything, like every month there's like one 2v2 event, but if they rise in popularity, I'm sure we'll see them a little bit more frequently. So yeah, really exciting stuff, really fun to see, and we'll see if this is just for fun or if the 2v2 meta does evolve over time. Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
On that note, before we move on, I would like to point out that there is one more team tournament this month on like 28th, I believe. There is a 3v3 cup by Wordy. So if you want to try your hand at 3v3s, then there is still one opportunity this month.
There we go. There we go. I had assumed that 3v3 event was going to be in January, but apparently not. Apparently it is in December, so do check it out. I'm sure we'll go over it during the sign-up list phase of the podcast. But regardless, it is going to be there if you're interested. So do consider taking part in the team game tournaments. As that does wrap up our 2v2 portion of the topic list. And now we're getting into our regionals and getting into our show matches. Oh boy, here we go. And we have the return of the Little Stormy Cup. I want to say that this event went on hiatus. Yeah, it did. Quickly double checking. For those that were curious, this is a new tournament series that did rise up, and it was being listed and being hosted as a weekly every single week. But we did notice that unfortunately there were less and less signups over time, and they were having a little bit of trouble gaining traction. The last Little Stormy Cup was back in September. It's been a couple of months. It's been a couple of months since the last Little Stormy Cup. It was back in September, but it has returned. So shout out to, of course, the organizer. Shout out to Slastorm Gaming and Viking, of course, for hosting this event. It was a best of 5 between Middle VK and Adam. Middle VK does take it in the end, so congratulations to Middle VK. And again, this event is unique in a way just because it is more catered around Slastorm players. So it's a way to kind of like support their more in-house players and in-house community. So yeah, we'll see if this series does return and does continue. Congratulations to Middle VK winning 2 Little Stormy Cups in a row. Congratulations here. And again, hopefully we'll see this pick up and rise when it comes to how many of these there are held. I think one of the things that we did mention about why some players might be disincentivized to compete is just how long the format is. It's best of 3s and then best of 5 semis and then best of 7 finals. And I believe both semis get casted as well. So like just a really long kind of format, considering the nature of the weekly itself. So a lot of games, and it did seem like a lot of players were a little bit less incentivized to commit that much and to commit that hard and commit that much time. But hopefully it does pick up. Especially with the finals being a best of 5, not a best of 7 this time. Regardless, GG well played. Congratulations to Middle VK. That leads us into Code for Giants Cup. This was held yesterday, not too long ago. This was this week's Brazilian-only tournament. And I have some news to go alongside this as well. Of course, we were casting this in English. Shout out to Cosmos for featuring this in Brazilian as well, as he is the admin and organizer of the tournament. And we had the best of the best in Brazil duke it out here. We had Master, we had Kamikaze, we had Don Minoko, we had Eric, we had Inexorable, we had Allison as well. We were missing a couple of players. We were missing Shakti, we were missing Yan. but for the most part, all the other regulars were here, and it was a banger of a tournament. Eric, he had a very strong performance against Inexorable in the semifinals, and in the grand finals, went all the way to the ace match as well. It was a very, very intense best of 5 between Master and Eric. It does feel like Eric's weakest matchup is EVP. He was playing very safe and playing very scared, it felt, against Master, not really his usual aggressive self, and Eric did struggle a little bit more. Shout out to Master. For those who do not know, Master is the best Protoss player, not just in Brazil, but in Latino America. He is the best Protoss that Latin America has to offer, so he is definitely a good challenger here for Eric, and Eric does claim that second place. GG. GG, well played. And as a heads up, this was the final Code for Giants Cup of the year of 2024. This was the final Code for Giants Cup, and I'm going to be dropping this very quickly here, and I'm sure our producer Kuro is very happy, but there is also a crowdfunding endeavor for the Brazilian scene as well. I was notified this after the tournament. Shout out to Cosmos. Cosmos has been working very hard behind the scenes. Essentially, there's kind of like an equivalent to like a GoFundMe that is being held currently for the Brazilian scene. And what this is this is an offline finals. They're planning an offline finals in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. Let's go. It is going to be in Sao Paulo. They have found a very nice kind of gaming LAN area or gaming bar, very similar to Home Story Cup. I know Cosmos is very excited, and their plan, as they've been hosting these bi-weeklies for the past, year, like maybe just under a year of play, they've been tallying the performance of all these players, and they will be inviting the best players in Brazil to this offline event. So they're going to be inviting them, they're going to be hosting this. I believe the event is going to happen regardless. The crowdfunding initiative specifically is to help when it comes to inviting players and paying for their transport. As you can imagine, if you didn't know, Brazil is a pretty large country. It's very, very big. And depending on where you are in Brazil, it can be quite difficult to travel to a certain location. So a lot of this is going to be for travel, for accommodations as well. That is the initiative of the crowdfunding, to allow for more players to take part in the event. I believe the crowdfunding did just begin a couple of days ago. So if you enjoy Code for Giants Cup, if you want to support the Brazilian scene, then you can do so here via the link in the chat, as I do link it here just for you. As again, they are trying to push this initiative for an offline event. I can't remember the last time there was an offline event in Brazil. It's been a very, very long time. So really cool to see. Really cool to see, and best of luck to Cosmos and everyone else getting involved, and their endeavors in the year of 2025. Oh boy. I remember Cosmos, he even asked me, he's like, mate, if you happen to be in Brazil at the time, we'd love to have you there. I'm like, mate, you think I'm going to... Like, traveling anywhere from Australia is crazy. So I don't think I'll be able to pull that off, but we'll be casting it regardless. Most likely, we'll be casting it here on the CranKy Ducklings. We bring you the English broadcast of the event. And again, shout out to the Brazilian scene for making this happen and for trying to make this this a reality as well. So big shout out to Cosmos, big shout out to the Brazilian scene. When it comes to Code for Giants Cup, this was the final one of the year, and it should be coming back next year as well. Again, all to help promote as well the offline event. So we should be seeing more Code for Giants in 2025. So there you go. That is on the horizon. Meanwhile, we do have the Sunrise Cup Grand Finals, the qualifiers. Okay, looks like there is an end-of-year event here for the Chinese scene. I do love to see it. I mean, in general, we have a lot of end-of-year events that are taking place, but the qualifiers have been held, and Young Zest does qualify alongside some of the other more up-and-coming amateur players. If you've been tuning into the podcast, you would know that every single week we do feature some of these, otherwise, I don't want to say unnamed, but some of these players that are just a little bit more new to us, I should say. You know, when we think of the Chinese scene, we think of players like Young Zest, we think of Oriana, we think of Number, for example, we think of Wanted, we think of Joliwa Loves, Rewhite. There are a lot of players in China, and recently, over the past 2, maybe 3 months, we've been seeing some of these bigger names. Nanami Chiaki comes to mind as well. We've been seeing some of these bigger names full to these otherwise more amateur names or unknown names to us. Specifically, they are players that don't even have English IDs. So every time we have to like translate who they are, we do have to try to pull that off. But congratulations to our Chinese Terran player, translating to South 9. We have Tsukino Deer as well. He's won quite a bit of Sunrise Cups and online tournaments. And I believe we have another player. We have um, Yu Ling. Hold on. Yu Ling. Okay. Another Chinese Terran player qualifying through. And again, it's always great to see these more up-and-comers like have a bigger and better chance to really showcase themselves and make a name for themselves and improve. We have noticed that here. Again, the Chinese scene has been very vibrant, very much so, despite some things that have been working against them, like the NetEase, like Chinese servers going down, for example. The Chinese scene has been very much so alive. I mean, shout out to SC Boy for being a big part of that as well. And we've been seeing a lot of players rising up as of late. So really cool to see. Best of luck when it comes to the main event. The second qualifier is going to be in 2 days. In 2 days' time, there's going to be the second qualifier. That's all going to lead into the big main event of the Sunrise Cup. Again, for those that are curious, Sunrise Cup is a weekly Chinese-focused tournament. It does focus around the Chinese scene and Chinese region, and great to see that they'll have a kind of big event to end the year, to end 2024. So I'm going to be looking forward to that. Again, we'll be going over the results of that event in the up-and-coming podcast. Up next, we have some show matches. We have the Super 7 number 23. Oh boy, we've had a lot of show matches here over the past couple of months, and we have a very strong showing from Zhao. Zhao versus Bunny in a best of 7. Now, for those of you that are maybe curious, like, Bunny, did he not retire? I was afraid he did. Bunny was very active this year, very much so. But Bunny, after EWC, that was what, like 3-4 months ago at this point, he stepped away. He went on hiatus. We haven't really seen much of Bunny for a couple of months at this point, ever since Esports World Cup. But Bunny, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, made his return. I don't know what it was. Specifically, it was during the Masters Coliseum qualifiers, the Korean qualifiers, and then the global qualifiers thereafter. Bunny did suddenly show up, and he's been looking pretty good. I mean, Bunny, in those qualifiers, he took down Trap, and he forced Gumiho to the ace match. More recently, after the qualifiers, he played in the Lima League. He played in a bunch of online open cups. He took down Gumiho. He got his revenge against Gumiho. I think he took him down 2-0 in the most recent KSL. Bunny has been getting better and better results very quickly as well over the past couple of weeks. Here did struggle though. Here, Bunny did go down 4-0, despite Bunny's accolades over the past couple of weeks. That is not enough to carry him through this best of 7, and Xian gets the 4-0. GG, well played. Very big win there for Xian. Considering how hot Bunny has been as of late, it is a very impressive result here by Xian. Xian, of course, he did return sooner than Bunny, in a sense. Like, Xian, he came back from the military. Xian has been grinding for the past couple of months. Bunny only just returned from hiatus a couple of weeks ago. So Bunny is a little bit more rough around the edges, and Bunny does fall here in this series. Yeah, just double checking. So just to confirm, Bunny, he was last competing in July of 2024, and he came back December 7th. So that was, 2 weeks ago. Just under 2 weeks ago. It was during those MC8 qualifiers, as we did mention. So Bunny, he had been gone for like 4 months. Jesus. Oh my god. I say 4 months, like 5 to 6 months even. Oh my god. So Bunny going for half a year, did come back. He's been doing well for himself, but again, does fall here in the show match. So GG well played to Xian. I hope this doesn't dissuade Bunny. Hopefully he sticks around. Again, I'm a big fan of Bunny, and maybe he just has more free time because it's December, because of the holidays. Maybe he's here to stay. Maybe it's, only a temporary thing. Regardless, best of luck to Bunny, as we're going to be catching up with more of his results in the coming events. We'll be catching up more with Bunny. As up next, we have the final show match of the week. It is the Basilisk Big Brain Bounce number 78. Shout out to Basilisk. Shout out to Rotterdam, of course, for hosting and for casting the event. This is a show match series, a weekly show match series, and we have our matches ahead of us. We have Mossen versus Ledalex. Very unfamiliar with these players. I think I'm familiar with Ledalex a little bit more, but Mosten does does face off against him in a best of 5. Mosin does take the win, the Hungarian Protoss player. We have UED Soldier versus Cuckoo, a player that I haven't seen in quite some time. Not UED Soldier. UED Soldier is very active. He plays in a lot of online tournaments. But Cuckoo is a player that I haven't seen since, what, like, Home Story Cup 25? It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen Cuckoo. So, in my mind, he may have been a player that was going to, like, silently retire. Just to confirm this, just to make sure that I'm not crazy. Wow, yeah, yo, my memory. The last tournament he played in, there were 2 last tournaments, to be fair. Home Story Cup 25 back in June, and then he played in one OSC King of the Hill after that. One OSC King of the Hill, also in June 28th. So Cuckoo, similarly to Bunny, where Bunny, he last played in July, and he just came back in December. Cuckoo, he last played in June, just came back in December as well. So Cuckoo has been gone for half a year. It's been quite some time. I just assumed that he had silently retired. And again, his last big showing was, Home Story Cup and that OSC King of the Hill. But great to see him back. It's always fun seeing these players that you don't see for a long time that do step away from the game. But remember, you're never really gone. Remember, you can't leave StarCraft that easily, Pappy. You can't leave. We'll hold on to you, Pappy. We'll hold on to you. So shout out to Cuckoo, as Cuckoo, he does go down, but expected result, I would say, because Cuckoo has not been around since June. It makes sense that a player that has been grinding this entire time to be favored. So I'll be honest, this feels like a bit of a mismatch. Not gonna lie, the fact that UED Soldier has been grinding and is very active and is on the rise, and Cuckoo's been inactive for 6 months. So kind of an odd one, but UED Soldier does take the win there in the end. Cuckoo did take a game, true. Shout out to Cuckoo for taking a game. That leads us into Nickrecht versus Cham. I don't know what it is about the Bassus Big Brain Bouts, but they have a lot of love for Cham. Cham has been playing in a lot of these show matches. Like, it's like every other week. Every other week, like, Cham is there. And I appreciate it. It's always fun to see Cham, just because, I'll be honest, I think this is the only thing that Cham plays in. I like Cham, he doesn't play in open cups anymore. He used to. Like, Cham used to be the grinder. Like, he used to play in everything. Cham, he used to be full-time a couple of years ago, just because, one, the cost of living in Mexico is quite low. So, it doesn't take much to be able to afford, utilities and afford food and all that stuff. On top of that, Cham was playing in every single online tournament he could and winning a lot of them, so he could actually afford, alongside his salary, to actually be full-time and play. And that was the case for a number of years. This was like back in 2020, 2021. But Cham has been less active. He's been less active starting last year, like 2023 into 2024. Cham, he doesn't really play much. Like, he would play in WTL for Starlight Twinkle. He'd play in these show matches, and that's kind of it. That's which is a little bit sad, considering how active Cham used to be. And I'm a big Cham fan, obviously, from Latino America, the Mexican Zerg player, big fan of Cham. But he has been very much so less active. And once again, I want to make sure I'm not crazy. I'm curious. I'm just gonna double check his history of matches here to see if he has been playing in anything else. Bassus, Big Brain Bouts. Cham, he has been playing in the OC mid-season playoffs, but even then he didn't make too large of a run, but we have been catching up with the mid-season playoffs. And yeah, it's mainly like WTL and show matches. WTL show matches, just not as active as he used to be back in the day. So yeah, it's been a little bit sad seeing his inactivity. Despite that, this is where he's been more active and where he's been thriving. Bassus, Big Brain Bouts. He does take the win here over Nickrecht. There was a back and forth. Nickrecht has been looking very impressive as of late. But what I will say is that, at least from the outside looking in, at least from what we've seen, it does feel like Nickrecht, his strongest matchup currently is TVP, and even TVT. Like, I've always rated it quite highly for Nickrecht. TVZ does seem like the matchup that he is a little bit weaker in. He's very aggressive, very in your face, but not as successful as some of these other matchups. So Cham does take the win in the end. I want to say it was last week that Cham, he competed against Fiant and also brought Fiant down as well. So yeah, for whatever reason, maybe Rotterdam also has some love for Cham as they keep bringing him back, and they keep showcasing him against other European talent. And always great to see more of Cham. I wish we saw more though. I wish we saw more of Cham, as he does get the win here. And that leads us into the main event, Alasia versus Hearthstone in a best of 5. Alasia does take it 3-0. Again, this feels a little bit like a mismatch. Nowadays, Hearthstone, he isn't as much of a competitor as he is a content creator, and is quite successful. Don't get me wrong, he's very successful. He's got a big YouTube channel. He makes a lot of content, a lot of fun, kind of content ideas, and he does a lot of casting nowadays as well. Less so competing, and yeah, Alasia does claim the 3-0. I guess now that I think about it, initially I said this was a mismatch. I think I want to take that back a little bit here because even though Hearthstone has been focusing a lot more on content creation, Alasia has been focusing a lot on Stormgate. We were joking at the time coming into Home Story Cup where Alasia took a big break. Alasia, he took a big break from competing after EWC. Alasia wasn't really playing in much at all. I mean, a lot of players took a break, to be fair. A lot of players did take a break, but yeah, Laser, he wasn't really competing too much in too many tournaments. Just to confirm once again, yep, ever since EWC, that was back in July, Laser, he only played, I mean, he didn't even really play in WTL. He's been playing in team games, 2v2 events, 3v3 events, and then Home Story Cup. So Alasia has been very inactive post EWC. And if you're curious, what was he doing after EWC in that period of inactivity? Stormgate. Alasia was playing a lot of Stormgate, less StarCraft 2. So yeah, now that I think about it, you know, maybe this was at least on paper a bit of a better matchup, but in the end, Alasia does take the 3-0. Alasia, ever since Home Story Cup, has been more active. He of course was invited to Home Story Cup. He's been playing in more online tournaments. I say more, he's been playing in online tournaments, period. He wasn't playing in anything after EWC. And more recently been playing in, you know, the Hub Cup, War DTV Mondays, the War DTV Invitational, and these show matches as well. So great to see Alasia. He's active again. He's active once again, and is quickly getting back in form. So it is great to see. It is going to be important leading into next year because there is a Polish LAN at the start of 2025. So Alasia he needs to make sure he's in form to be able to get his revenge over Spirit. We'll see if he can. See if he can, as that does wrap up our show matches, and we do get into our weekly Open Cups. Oh boy, there's a lot of Open Cups. there's a lot to get into. So very quickly, just going to be speeding through this as well. We have the KSL, we have the Korean StarCraft League, and this is what I was referring to. If you remember, I was talking about how over the past 2 weeks, Bunny has been more active playing in almost everything, including the KSL. Including the Korean StarCraft League. We, of course, did cast this ourselves. We did follow Bunny's run, and Bunny faced off against Dark in the quarterfinals. Unfortunate, as Dark is very much so in form, and we followed Dark here. We followed Dark into all these ZVZs. Honestly, some really high quality ZVZs as well. I know that mirror matchups aren't the most favorite of matchups for players to watch, but I do recommend it. Some really high quality ZVZs, some late games, some mind games, aggression as well. Dark, he popped off against Shin and against Solar as well. And even though these were some more dominant results out of Dark, I do recommend them because a lot of these games are very close. Very close games here, as this was the, I want to say, first ZVZ finals in KSL in a very long time. Oh boy. If not the first time, period. Let me double check. So for those that are unaware, the Korean StarCraft League, it is a bi-weekly tournament. Big shout out to Dave Test and Chicken Man. They do have their own Patreon as well, so you can support them on Patreon if you wish. As I do link it in the chat. But when it comes to the KSL, it is typically dominated by Hero. Hero, out of all players in the world, in the history of KSL, Hero has won the most tournaments, so it is typically Protoss dominated. So I want to see here, when was the last ZVZ? Okay, we have had a couple of ZVZs recently, when it comes to the finals. So just double checking. It looks like 4. Okay. out of 65 KSL, sorry, 64 KSL, yeah, 65. We have had 4 of them. Typically between Dark and Shin. Usually Dark and Shin, but this time Dark and Solar. Something I should also emphasize as well, Solar doesn't usually play in these tournaments. Solar, he is usually inactive, like in these open cups. Usually it's Dark, Hero, Shin, Beyond, Trap, all these other competitors do usually vie for, these online championships. Solar, less so. But Solar did recently leave his team. He joined Team Falcons, and that may have kind of like lit a fire under him. And Solar has been more active. He has been more active in these open cups, has been more active in KSL. So really cool to see him taking down Hero. I kind of glossed over Solar praising Dark's performance, but Solar, he 2-0 Trap and he 2-1 Hero. Very impressive stuff here out of Solar. Some of the best Protoss players in all of Korea. When I think of top 3 Protoss, I think of Trap, Hero, and Classic as the top Protoss in Korea. So really nice performance out of Solar, but does fall to Dark in those finals. As that leads us into that leads us into the Vexliga StarCraft 2 Community Cup. This is not necessarily a German tournament, but it is a tournament organized and funded by Take TV. Take TV, they have been hosting this event for a couple of weeks now. I believe this is a bi-weekly. I want to say this is a bi-weekly tournament, not a weekly, not that much. And I say bi-weekly, I believe there was a hiatus. There was a hiatus because of Home Story Cup, right? Because Take, they were focusing on Home Story Cup. There was a break, but now it is back, and we do have our competitors here. We had a Geralt, MiddleVK, Nicorect, no money. Let's go. No money was there as well. Angry was there, and oh boy, we had a best of 5 finals between Geralt and Nicorect. I mean, looking at the signups, looking at the players, 100% Geralt and Nicorect are the top 2 players of the tournament, and I do rate both players quite highly. I mentioned before, when we were talking about the performance of Nicorect against Cham, how in my mind, Nicorect, his stronger matchups, his best matchups are TVP and TBT, more so than against Zerg. And this kind of showcases that here as well. Nicorect did go down in the finals, but he had a very good showing. Went all the way to the ace match against Geralt of all players. Geralt, I would say, is one of the top Protoss players in Europe. Geralt, he's like one step behind players like Skillus, for example. Like when you think of the top Protoss players, you think Skillus, you think Showtime, you think MaxPax, right? Those are the top 3 Protosses in Europe. Just behind them, that's where I would place players like Geralt, like Hearthstone, like Christiana. Like that's where, and Mana as well. Like that's where, they're kind of held just beneath those top 3 Protosses. You can kind of rearrange them however you so choose. So yeah, one of the stronger Protoss players in Europe. So for Nicorect to bring him to the ace match and to have taken the series himself. I mean, fun fact, it was a reverse sweep from Geralt. So if this was a best of 3, Nicorect would have won it. He would have won it 2-0. So very intense series between the two of them. Did go the way of Geralt, but a shout out to Nicorect nonetheless for the performance and for the second place. GG. GG, well played. That does lead us into the Wardy TV Monday this week. Of course, we were there to cast it, as always, getting into Wardy TV Monday. And typically in these tournaments, it's usually Clem and MaxPax. Clem and MaxPax, they are usually the 2 dominant forces. Every now and then there's an upset. Every now and then a player will bring one of them down and, kind of shake up the hierarchy in Wardy TV Mondays. This week, no MaxPax. A lot of people were asking. A lot of people were tuning in. A lot of people were asking, like, yo, ¿a dónde está mi MaxPax? I'm like, no sé, papi. No sé. He's gone. This week, there was no MaxPax. In general, MaxPax was less active this week, specifically, maybe because of December, maybe because of the holidays, he had something else to do. Or, the better theory, I do recommend the VODs. Again, we casted a lot of these matches and the majority of this event. I do recommend the VODs because potentially MaxPax was here and we just didn't realize what was really happening. MaxPax, a lot of people think, oh, is he like the Danish prince? He's from Denmark, right? That's what everyone thinks. No. He was the French Terran the entire time. Confirmed, papi. As Clem, he popped off. And he popped off with Protoss. We were talking about this last week when Clem competed in Home Story Cup, and when Clem competed in Olima League, and when Clem's been playing these online tournaments, more and more frequently now, instead of TBT, Clem is playing Protoss. Clem is playing and is winning as Protoss instead. There are some people that do tune in from time to time, and they're like, oh, what is Clem like not taking this seriously? No, he is. That's why he's playing Protoss. He wants to win, Bab. He wants to win. For those that are maybe unaware when it comes to Clem's form and Clem's matchups, Clem, historically, his weakest matchup is TBT. 100%. 100% his weakest matchup is TBT. Time and time again, that has been one of the ways that he has been brought down in these events, whether it's World Team League or whether it's these other big online events, even offline events as well. We saw that in the most recent Home Story Cup as Gumiho brought Clem down. And Clem in the rematch played Protoss. Here's been playing Protoss last week in the Lima League. He played Protoss against Ryung as well. Fun fact, Clem, he lost his first game against Ryung as Terran, and then he switched to Protoss and he won every game. He won every game from then on forward. And here, Clem, he played Protoss against Bunny. He played Protoss against Bjorn as well. Did 2-0 all of them and has been looking very strong. Also, for those that are unaware, Clem, he is the highest rated Protoss player on the European ladder, even higher than MaxPax. Like, his Protoss is very, very strong. And Clem specifically plays Protoss against Terran players in tournaments now. I mean, I say that. He's been doing so for the past couple of weeks, and that continues to be the trend. And I do think it's a really, I mean, if it's an option to you, I think it's really viable. I think it's really smart. I like the idea of Clem, recognizing some of his weaknesses and having an alternate solution to them. Sure, he could just work on his TBT, but if PBT is easier, just play Protoss, right? Just embrace the Protoss, baby. So that has been his solution, and it's been working very well. I do recommend the VODs. I do recommend tuning in. He's had some really good performances against Bunny, Bjorn, Ryung as well, all the top Korean Terran players. In general, I think the only top Korean player that we haven't seen him play Protoss against, Terran player I mean, is Maru. I don't think we've seen Clem versus Maru, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it as well. I think that's the only player that he hasn't brought down. I guess Maru and Gumiho, but Gumiho doesn't count. Like, Gumiho, he's very unorthodox in TVP. Gumiho is willing to play mech against, but Gumiho is not very standard. So it makes sense that Gumiho would be the bane of Protoss Clem's existence. I think the only Terran outside of Gumiho that Clem hasn't beaten so far is Maru. I think that's the only one. So we'll see if eventually he gets that. In the end, it was a TVP finals between Clem and Hero. Of course, not a PvP. I should emphasize this as well. Clem only plays Protoss against other Terran players. Only against other Terran players. Which is why at the time we were making jokes that, MaxPax, really, he's here. He was Clem all along. It makes sense, Papi. It makes sense. It was always Clem, Papi. Always Clem. Best Protoss in Europe. As Clem versus Hero went all the way to the ace match, a banger of a finals. I do recommend it. Hero, as always, much more chaotic, much more aggressive. He is a cut of his own. He's not quite like MaxPax or like Clem's Protoss, and went all the way to game 5. In the end, it did go the way of Clem, but it was a very close finals. Very close finals. To get there, Hero, he flexed his PVZ. We were following Rogue. We casted Rogue versus Lambo into Hero, then Hero into Shin, into both semis, into the finals. That is what we casted here on the channel. I do recommend it. Hero had a very strong performance in his PVZs and even in the finals as well. Hero, he played well, played very well. I mean, he is the best Protoss in Korea for a reason. Did go down in the finals, but no shame in going down to the best player in the world, as Clem does take it. Clem does take it. We were also making jokes as well about Clem kind of being the avatar, mastering all 3 races. Jokingly, I think people were saying is Clem gonna be the first if he masters Zerg? Is he gonna be the next the first big random competitor? Is that gonna happen? Personally, to approach that in a more serious manner, I don't think that would happen. Even if Clem got as good with his Zerg as he is with Protoss and Terran, I think he'll do one better. I don't think he would play as random. I think that takes away some of his strengths. I think he'd just be a race picker. I think he'd just rely on the best matchups that he has, and for this, for example, right? He's playing Protoss against Terran. If he played random, it'd probably hurt him because there's a chance he rolls Terran. There's a chance that he gets into a TBT and that'll hurt him more than anything. So I think more likely if he were to get that good with Zerg as well, I think he just pick specific matchups and focus on those. Protoss against Terran, Terran against Zerg, and then Zerg against Protoss or something like that, for example. Honestly, I don't really see him playing. I don't think he needs to play Zerg. I don't think, even if he was good with it, I don't think he'd want to play it over the other races, I'll be honest. But he'd have that option. Or something that I think would be even better is he would pick the race depending on the matchup and depending on the map as well. Because I do think that you do play things differently if you're on Abyssal Reef, for example, or, for example, Whispers of Gold, right? A larger map or a smaller map, a more defendable map, a macro map, or a more aggressive map. Like, depending on the map, I can see someone like Clem just picking races specifically on the matchup and on the map itself to kind of like cater towards his plan or his style or his build. That I can see. Less so random, but it's always fun to theorize. Always fun to think about. Always fun to think about, as it's not too serious of a discussion. As I don't think Clem has really shown us any want or need to play Zerg. But regardless, GG well played. Clem does take it in the end, and Clem is this week's Wardy TV champion. GG, well played. That does lead us into the King of the North number 5. Again, not the most consistent of tournaments. I want to say this is a monthly, just double checking. No, this event was also on hiatus. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this was also by Viking. Yeah, just like Viking. Just like the Little Stormy Cup. So the Little Stormy Cup and this tournament, they have been on hiatus ever since September. They both came back. I'm curious if maybe Viking was just unavailable and now he has more free time. And as a result, he hosts another big tournament here, the King of the North. This one is not restricted to players from Psystorm Gaming, and we did have a wait, what happened? Okay, I was like, wait. Litka defeated Geralt? What's going on? There is a little bit of a note there, though, that does confirm that Geralt, this tournament took place at the same time as the Virksliga Community Cup, which is the tournament that we just went over previously, where Geralt took down Nickrecht. He took down Nickrecht to win the entire tournament. So unfortunately, they were clashing. That is really unfortunate that these two events happened at the same time. So Geralt, he did forfeit, and that did open things up to some of these other competitors. We had Hatsu, we had Litka, we had Geralt, MindoVK, and Shameless. And in the end, it was a best of 7 finals between MindoVK and Shameless. Did go the way of Shameless. I mean, without Geralt being a part of this, Shameless, he was the highest rated player in the tournament. Shout out to MindoVK, of course, for making a series out of it. But Shameless, he's been on fire, right? Shameless, he has been on the rise this year and has been looking very strong, very powerful. GG, well played. Congratulations to Shameless, and a shout out to all the other competitors here tonight as well. Again, it is a shame that it did clash with another online weekly or online tournament. But regardless, congratulations to Shameless. A shout out to Viking for bringing this tournament back. That leads us into the Pigosaur Cup number 11. Let's go. Does lead us into the Pigosaur Cup, and this is a tournament that we had to cast via replays. We weren't able to cast it live, but oh my god, there were just so many good matches held here. A lot of PvPs. Trigger, this was his tournament though. We've been seeing Trigger pop off in these team games with Euthermal, with Clem, has been popping off in these 2v2s, but Trigger, he takes down Hero 2-1 in the PvP, does bring him down. Trigger takes down Shin as well, 2-1. These are not easy opponents. Hero and Shin, some of the strongest Zerg and Protoss players in Korea, and Trigger makes it to the grand finals, taking down the Creator 3-1. If you missed it, I do recommend tuning into the VODs, especially the finals. The finals was a very short finals, a lot of all-ins, and I do remember after the fact, after the tournament ended, Trigger did tweet, he did post, he said something along the lines of, oh, I need to stop using my brain because I win more tournaments. Like something along those lines, where Trigger, he was like, I need to stop thinking because then I do well. And again, Trigger, he all-in almost every game. Almost every game Trigger all-in against Creator, and he won. And I would assume that maybe he all-in the hell out of Hero as well. I didn't get to tune into Trigger versus Hero, but based on that tweet and based on that comment, it's there's a high chance that maybe he cheesed the hell out of Hero. And maybe he cheesed the hell out of Shin as well. I didn't get to see those games either. But crazy. I can at least confirm that for the finals. So congratulations to Trigger. Shout out to all the other competitors. Shin took down Geralt, went to the ace match against Trigger. Dark took down Epic, went to the ace match against Creator. Creator 2-0'd Estrella. Very impressive stuff here. Creator, he was kind of like the NA sniper, taking down Dolan, Estrella, and up against Trigger in the finals. But Trigger, he is this week's Biggest on Monday champion. Again, we've been hyping up Trigger quite a bit over the past couple of months, or the past half year. The reason for this is because Trigger is in Korea. He's been training and practicing and improving in Korea quite a lot, and he spent a lot of time with Clem in Korea as well, which I think is also why Trigger and Clem were teammates in that 2v2 tournament, just because, of course, bonds were formed, friendships were made, and yeah, really cool to see Trigger playing with Clem, learning with him, practicing with him, improving with him, and now that comes to this kind of fruition here, where we have Trigger taking down Hero, Shin, and Creator. So again, Trigger, like, his results have been getting better and better over the past couple of months. So really impressive stuff, and we'll see if that rate of improvement continues coming into the next year. We shall see. Up next, we have Sparkling Tunic Cup. Sparkling Tunic Cup number 77. As this was a couple of days ago, we did have some of our regulars. Unfortunately, Young Yakov was not able to compete here, but we did have our other regulars. We had Geralt, Luna C, we had Rebellion, Creator, Nicaract as well. Demi rocked up. Night Phoenix for the first time in a long time. Night Phoenix has been very inactive. Great to see him here once again. We had Hatsu, we had Flexi, we had Azura. Plenty of competitors here. In the end, what I will say, even though it was a 2-0, I do recommend Creator versus Nicaract, especially game 1. Game 2 was a little bit more one-sided, but game 1 was a banger. Game 1 could have gone either way. I do recommend the VODs. I do think that the scoreline gives justice, or does justice, to those two players and to that series, so I do recommend it. And the finals was insane as well. A very clutch back and forth. Creator, he may have gone down to Trigger in the Pigosword Monday, but Creator, he brings down Geralt in the Sparkling Tunic Cup. It was a close one though. Went to the ace match, and again, I can see a world where Geralt wins that instead. Very, very close series, very close best of 5. GG, well played. Congratulations to Creator winning. I want to say, is this his first or his second Sparkling Tunic Cup? I know the Creator has been more active these past couple of weeks, has been playing in more of our tournaments. This is first. There we go. This is Creator's first win, so congratulations, Creator. He did come second place in STC 75, but here in 77, he finally gets that win. Congratulations here to Creator for winning his first tuna, and hopefully the first of many. Hopefully we see more of Creator in the upcoming weeks and upcoming months. Up next, we have the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, our other tournament here on the CranKy Ducklings. Sparkling Tunic Cup is a weekly, Tenacious Turtle Tussle is a bi-weekly. Also, very quickly, I should emphasize that thanks to the support that we're getting on the channel, thanks to the patrons that we're getting, the Sparkling Tunic Cup prize pool has increased. Thank you so much for all the support that we get. Exclamation mark Patreon in the chat if you wish to support us even further in our endeavors and in our tournaments. Again, the Patreon helps fund all of our tournaments, specifically Sparkling Tunic Cup, Sea Duckling Open, and Masters 1 Open as well. And if it isn't for the support that we're getting, and then these events would not be possible. So thank you. Thank you so much for all the support. Thanks so much for boosting the prize pool. And our next stretch goal is available as well to try to boost the prize pool even further and pay out top 4. So thank you. Thank you so much for the support that we've been getting. We do appreciate it. We do appreciate it. And yeah, with that, that leads us into the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. This event was this morning. Oh boy, it was this morning. And so many of these players are animals. Oh my god, what was it? I think Shameless was letting us know that he was playing at like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning. Crazy stuff. Like, this tournament is designed around the Korean and the American scene, not the European scene. It is open though. It is open to all players. And yo, the passion with these European players, mate, playing at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning for some of them, depending on their time zone. I know there's a lot of time zones in Europe depending on where you are. And animals. The passion is real though, and I've got to thank you so much, and big shout out to all these players that did take part. Despite the fact that it was a brutal time for them, they still stuck through it, and I think you could tell that they were getting really tired. You could tell that they were getting a little bit loopy and a little bit crazy and a little bit incoherent. 100%. Maybe that's just how they are always. I don't know. But regardless, Jimmy popped off. went to the ace match against Dolan, had a very close series against Dolan, but Jimmy, he took down Shameless, and he took down Geralt in the grand finals. Before that, before I get ahead of myself, shout out to Nick and Geralt, they went to the ace match once again. It feels like we're getting a bit of a rivalry. Bit of a rivalry here between Geralt and Nick as they've been facing off time and time again. I mean, I say rivalry, it's because they're so active, right? They're so active. They're always signing up for these open cups. You know, Geralt, Nick, Shameless, Cristiano less so these past couple of weeks, but a lot of these players are on that grind. They're on that grind. They play in everything they can, and they do well. They do well for themselves, and as a result, they play each other very often. They play each other very often here. In the end, Geralt takes down Nickrat in that best of 3, and Geralt versus Jimmy was very chaotic. It was a very chaotic best of 5. I recommend the VODs. It was very, I think the phrase that I used, it was a very uneasy series. Very uneasy. Like, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of like fake proxies, real proxies, a lot of aggression, a lot of mid-game aggression as well. The one game that Geralt really got into his own build and his own style was Abyssal Reef, but he was denied that in almost every other game, and Jimmy, he won it in the end. Did win the tournament. Big shout out to Jimmy. Really impressive. You know, I don't really rate Jimmy as highly. Like, Jimmy, he's just not as active. He's not as active in these online tournaments. So we don't really get to see Jimmy as often. But every now and then he shows up. And he shows up well. Like he pops off whenever he shows up. So GG, well played. Jimmy takes down Geralt 3-1. Very impressive. I was 100% favoring Geralt in that series, and I still would favor Geralt in a rematch, but part of it may also be, you know, maybe one player is more degen than the other. So it's possible. It is possible. Shout out to Jimmy. Shout out to Mark BT for sponsoring. Shout out to Protosaurus for boosting the prize pool as well. Much love here to the sponsors and to the players, as that leads us into the final events of the week. Here we go. Up next, we have the Masters Coliseum. Again, we already went over the qualifiers. The qualifiers we already did go over. The main event has begun, and Yaku and I, we had some predictions. Now, this event is a 2-month-long event. If you remember, we alluded to it earlier, but this is the event that Dark did not sign up for. So we had assumed, because he didn't sign up for it, it's because he is unavailable in January because of military service. At the start of the podcast, we went over the fact that he did announce military service, so it all led into the other. It all makes sense. It all kind of connects. But that's why Dark didn't take part. And again, this is a 2-month-long event. A lot of content, a lot of matches, a lot of StarCraft. And last weekend was Group A. Serral, Estrella, Cure, and Shin. 4 amazing players. Serral, he was poised to make it through, and again, Serral, he was favored to come out in first place, but what we did not expect was the dominance of Estrella. He popped off, he went to town, he took down everyone else, and he even forced Serral to the ace match. I highly recommend the VODs. Estrella, of course, he is known for his late game. He has some of the best late game PvZ in the world, and he did late game the hell out of Serral and took him down. It was crazy. It was a crazy performance. I do recommend it. Coming into this, I believe Yaku predicted Serral and Estrella. I predicted Serral and Shin, but my caveat there, and something that I admitted, is that Shin was less active the past 2 weeks. The past 2 weeks, Shin, he wasn't as active, he wasn't as in form, so I was kind of gambling a little bit there. Estrella clearly much more in form, and just really impressive stuff. Really impressive performance there out of Estrella. Estrella, of course, just like Trigger, he was spending a lot of time in Korea this year. He did practice, did improve, did train quite a bit alongside Trigger and Clem. So really great to see that come to fruition here. And Estrella, he is looking so damn good right now. He's looking very good, looking very strong. And I look forward to seeing more of Estrella in the coming weeks in this tournament, in the playoffs of Master Coliseum. When it comes to the other groups, I think we already went through our predictions. Coming into Group B, I think, who do we predict? I think Yaku predicted Max Pax and Skillus, and I think I went. What did I go for? Did I go Max Pax and Raynor or Rogue and Raynor? I can't quite. I'll be honest, I can't quite recall. But regardless, we'll be going over it next time anyway, because this group B is in 2 days. This weekend is Group B. We're going to be there to cast it, of course, both Saturday and Sunday. 2 days of Master Coliseum action. We're going to be all over it. We're going to be all over Masters Coliseum. Again, this weekend isn't just Masters Coliseum, it is also the Fire Grow Cup as well. A little bit surprised we didn't go over that, but I believe the qualifiers of the Fire Grow Cup are underway. I think they may have even been today. I think maybe like yesterday and today were the qualifiers for the Fire Grow Cup, and the main event is going to be this weekend, and we'll be going over the main events here live on the channel for Fire Grow Cup, so stay tuned for that. Likewise, the Master Coliseum 8 Group B also going to be on the channel as well. So it's going to be a busy weekend with Master Coliseum, with Fire Grow Cup as well, and with Alima League. Oh boy, it's it's a lot of content this weekend, a lot of content. And up next, we have the final event, which I believe is currently live. I believe it's currently ongoing. That is the Wardy TV Christmas Invitational 2024. A big end-of-year event here for Christmas over on Wardy's channel. We have our groups. We actually didn't get to go over them. I don't think we were able to quite... Oh, actually, no, I think we did. Maybe. I think we did go over the groups. We went over our predictions. I'll be honest, I don't actually recall the... No, I think I do. Group A, I think we were both on Hero. And I think I said Hero and... Maybe I think Hero and Trigger. I think Yaku went for Piotr. I'll be honest. I think he went for the Piotr prediction. So... Yeah, I mean, Spirit coming out in first place, really impressive. He comes out alongside Hero. We had Clem and Björn advancing on as well over Mana and Elaser. I think we both said Björn and Clem. Yeah, I think we both were on Björn and Clem. Scrolling down, we had Max Pax and Harstem. I think I went Max Pax and Solar, and I think Yaku went Max Pax and Ryung. So really impressive here that Harstem made it through. Actually, a three-way tie. Okay, yeah, Harstem, Ryung, and Solar, they all only got one win. Only one win for each player, so there was a three-way tie. It came down to the map score. Harstem, he took one game off of Ryung and one game off of Max Pax, so he didn't get 2-0'd as often, which means Harstem makes it through. Based on the map score, Harstem, he made it through over Solar and Ryung. Very impressive stuff here, and a really impressive win for Harstem over Solar. I would love to see those matches, love to see that VOD. Scrolling over Group D, ooh, I think we were both on the Gumiho hype train, and I think we were split. I want to say that Yaku said Gumiho and Lambo, and I think I said my heart says Gumiho and Skillus, and my head says Gumiho and Shin. I think I was torn, and I think I went for Nikita because specifically because Nikita took down Solar to qualify for Masters Coliseum. So I'm on that Nikita hype train, and Nikita, he makes it through. Gumiho and Nikita, very impressive stuff. They do make it through Group D, and now we have the playoffs. And I believe the playoffs are currently ongoing. We have Max Pax versus Skillus in a PvP, Spirit versus Björn in a TVT, Gumiho and Hero, and Clem and Harstem. Oh boy. So usually I would be here with Yaku to predict these matches and to crown a champion for Wardy TV, the Christmas Invitational. Coming into this, how do we feel? All right. Now, I don't have Yaku here, unfortunately, but no Zerg, no surprise. Jesus. I mean, I say no surprise. A lot of the top Zerg players aren't here, but you have some of the best. You have the best Protoss players and the best Terrans in the world. Like, you have Clem, you have Hero, you have Gumiho, you have Max Pax, right? You have, like, the best Protoss and the best Terran players. You're missing Mario, but that's really it. That's all you're missing here. So you have very, very strong Protoss and Terran representation. When it comes to Zerg players in this Invitational, no Serral, no Raynor, no Dark. So you're missing the top Zerg players. They are the top 3 Zergs in the world. Dark, Raynor, and Serral. So this makes sense as to why there's no Zerg player in the playoff bracket. No shame here to Rogue, Solar, and Shin. They are very strong players. And what I will say is that I would have favored Rogue over Spirit in Group A. I would have favored Solar over Harstem in Group C. So there were some upsets. I do rate skills a little bit higher than Shin at the moment, so I stand by that one. But there were some upsets for Solar and for Rogue not to make it out of the group stage. So I will say that. There were some upsets here in this tournament. Regardless, purely Terran and Protoss. Who will make it through? I have to favor, from top to bottom, Max Pax over Skillus. I've got a lot of love for Nikita. I've got a lot of love for Skillus, a lot of love for him. But it's hard to bet against Max Pax in a PvP. So leaning towards Max Pax there. Spirit versus Björn. I love Piotr, but Bjorn, I do give him the edge over Spirit there. Despite that, again, Spirit did make it out of the group stage, surprisingly. Like, that's crazy. I don't know how that happened. But I'm feeling Max Pax versus Beyond in the semifinals, and then Max Pax into the grand finals. When it comes to the lower half of the bracket, we have Gumiho versus Hero, Clem versus Harsum. I think Clem advances on over Harsum. I think Gumiho versus Hero is a close one. I think that's really hard to call, actually. I know Hero has a lot of star power. Gumiho never count him out. There's a reason why Gumiho is the reigning Home Story Cup champion. Like, Gumiho is a beast. He's very, very unique in his play. I think that's the hardest one to call, actually. I think out of all the quarterfinals matches, I think Gumiho and Hero could go either way. If Gumiho advances onto the semis, I do rate Gumiho higher than Clem. I do think that Gumiho has better TVT and TVP. So I do think that Gumiho is going to be favored against Clem, and we could be seeing a Max Pax versus Gumiho finals. If Hero makes it through over Gumiho instead, that's where I favor Clem. I favor Clem over Hero, and then we could see Clem versus Max Pax. So in my mind, at least, there are two scenarios: either Max Pax versus Clem or Max Pax versus Gumiho. And yeah, when it comes to the champion, though, that's even harder to call. That's even harder. I think I'm leaning towards either Gumiho or Clem, though. Regardless of which of those two players makes it into the finals, I do rate them, or I do think that they will have it over Max Pax, but it's hard to say. It is going to be hard to say. A lot of different variables are going to come into play, a lot of possibilities. Upsets have already happened in this tournament. Upsets could happen again, and I do recommend checking out the event itself. Do check out the event. If you're a fan of Zerg, I do apologize here. There is no Zerg representation, but again, you know, I'm sure Wardy reached out, and I'm sure he invited some of those Zerg players, and they just weren't available. So unfortunate that neither Rain or Serral or Dark could be a part of this. Regardless, best of luck. Best of luck here to those players, to everyone getting involved. And again, we'll be getting updates here on the results of this tournament tonight. As I just realized, wait, what? Wait, what? Apparently, the entire playoffs is today. I feel like usually you would turn this into 2 days, right? You'd have quarterfinals one day and then semifinals, finals the other. But yeah, sorry, I'm just a little bit caught off guard. Apparently, the entire broadcast of the playoffs is tonight. So best of luck. Best of luck to those competitors. Best of luck to Wardy as well, covering this event. And do check it out. I'm sure it's going to be a banger of a tournament. It's going to be a long one as well. It's going to be a long broadcast tonight. So best of luck. And with that, that leads us into the sign-up list. Here. Oh boy, again, if you want to take part, if you want to sign up and compete in some of these open cups, there are plenty of them. In the upcoming week, we have the Passioncraft Thursday Showdown, number 69. Nice. We have a Lima League in a day. I mean, the Passioncraft event is in 5 hours. We have the Sunrise Cup qualifiers. Again, that is regional to the land of China. So best of luck to all those players, as we have qualified number 2. We have Hub Cup number 2. That is turning into a replacement European Cup. In the at a more friendly European time slot and time zone. So best of luck to Hapsaya. Hapsaya has been funding and hosting that tournament. So Hub Cup number 2 is upon us. It is a bi-weekly tournament, not a weekly, every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks instead. We have the Wardy TV Monday. We have Christmas Cup 2024. I believe that is Jumi's tournament. I do know that he is in talks of maybe moving it to a different day. So we'll see what happens with the Christmas Cup. We have Pegasus Monday, Master Swan Open, and many more events towards the end of the year. We have the Wardy TV 3v3 December Cup, more Wardy TV Mondays, OLC Challenger Series, and many more. So yeah, with that, do check it out. Do check out the sign-up list. Exclamation mark, I think sign-ups? Is there a command? There we go. We do have a sign-up list link in the chat. If you want to take part, if you want to sign up, then you can do so there, as this is updated on a regular basis. And we have gone over the week's news. Again, I do apologize. I did kind of try to speed through it a little bit more here, just because I'm on my own, Papi. I'm on my own. Have a little bit less discussion. There is no Yaku here. If you're tuning in a little bit later, if you're curious, where is Yaku? What's going on? He is unwell. He is unwell this week. He is under the weather. So wishing the best when it comes to recovering and recuperating. So best of luck to Yaku, as he is going to be coming back to us eventually here in the coming weeks. I hope he is okay. Especially considering we have another event on the horizon. the Duckling Showdown. The Duckling Showdown is on the horizon here. That's going to be an end-of-year show match series, end-of-year show matches for 2024. So we have our own celebration. Wardy has his Christmas Invitational. We have our Duckling Showdown. We have yet to really announce which show match is going to be held, just because we're still finalizing that behind the scenes. But eventually we will. And I'm sure you can hazard a guess. I'm sure you can hazard a guess as to some of the show matches that we want to bring to you. It's going to be a great time, I'm sure. So do consider checking it out. Again, keep an eye on our channel as we go live on a daily basis. Every single day here, we have plenty of content on the CranKy Ducklings, whether it's casting, whether it's talk shows or podcasters or podcasts like this. Plenty of content on the CranKy Ducklings. Our next broadcast is going to be tomorrow. Something different, something special. It's going to be an MC versus Latino against the Latin American community. I mean, against Community Latam. Let's go. We have a StarCraft Evolution show match with Minchul MC. Oh boy, let's go again. MC, he has been active again. He's been playing in a lot of StarCraft Evolution show matches over the past couple of months, and he's going to be playing in another tomorrow. I should say he already played in it. We're going to be covering it via replays. We're going to be having a replay cast tomorrow with those MC show matches, so we got you covered there. Likewise, Firegrow Cup, Alima League, and Master Coliseum all throughout the weekend. With that, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Again, a bit of a shorter podcast here this week, just because I'm on my own, so just trying to get through it as best as I can. Doing what I can here. And likewise, when it comes to here on the CranKy Ducklings, you can follow us on all the social medias. We do post whenever we go live. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all things CranKy Ducklings, if you so choose to. We got you covered there. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we'll see you guys next time for the next podcast. As a bit of a PSA, our next podcast is not next week. Usually this is a weekly broadcast. But next week we will be taking some time off just because, of course, of Christmas, because of New Year's and Christmas. We want to let people enjoy their time with their families and enjoy the holidays. So we will be taking next week off when it comes to the podcast. And we might be taking New Year's off as well, because it is New Year's. So we'll see what happens. We might come back on the 2nd. Otherwise, our next podcast is going to be on the 9th of January. So we are going to be taking an extended break, but we might decide to come back a little bit sooner, just to bring you guys as much content as we can. We do want to allow, Kuro and Yaku and some of these other ducklings some time to just have a break and have a rest at the end of the year. But we'll see. we'll see what happens, Fafi. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Kuro as well for handling the production. If you want to tune into more of myself, I do stream on my own personal channel. I haven't had the luxury of streaming for the past couple of days because we've been casting so much StarCraft. And I myself am going to be traveling next week, heading over to the Outback in Australia. Heading over to meet up with my family, with my sister, with my nephew as well, spending Christmas outside of the home and in the middle of nowhere. Because of that, we won't be casting on Tuesday or Wednesday. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, we will not be broadcasting here on the channel, as I'll be otherwise not at my PC. So just a bit of a PSA there. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the MC Latam Comunidad show match. See you then. Papi. Ciao, ciao. Yeah.